Offered here is probably one of the more important and exciting things that I've ever had my hands on from well, I would say all memorabilia's perspective, but including trading cards, and that's saying a lot because I've handled a lot of trading cards in my day. As a kid growing up, there were a few images and poses that even as a trading card collector, you became very aware of. This sliding pose or this sliding picture of Ty Cobb is featured in lots of places. For me as a kid, what I instantly recognized it from more than any other was the center slot of the T202 issue, the trifold issue, which featured his Cobb sliding on several of the cards. It was one of my favorite cards of all time. And it was because of that pose. As I got older, you learn more about this image, and the story behind this is really something worthy of Cooperstown, or I mean the Library of Congress, frankly. What we have here is the only known copy, Type 1, of this iconic photo. And a Type 1 photo, for those who aren't as educated on it, is designated as having been pulled off of the original negative that was shot by the photographer, and that original negative had to have had the image pulled off of it within the first 2 years of that negative having been created. So what we have is a very scarce designation for Type 1. They're like the rookie cards, essentially, of the negative. They're the most coveted, the most desired, and this is the only copy known to exist of this all-important photo in Type 1 status. The story behind this, so the depth of it, is Charles Conlon, who is undoubtedly the most coveted and world-renowned photographer for baseball. His prowess was most pronounced in the early 1900s and teens. He died in 1945, but when he did, he had shot arguably some of the most important portraits of some of the game's best, and really is regarded as the game's premier photographer. Now, what makes this so amazing is not only is this the only copy known to exist, but this is easily regarded as his most important photo shot ever done, and it is one of very few action poses that he ever did. The story even gets more interesting beyond that, but Conlon as a photographer was really known for capturing the essence of a player in their portrait, still framed poses, whereas action shots were much less frequent, and none are maybe as vibrant and tell as much a story as this copy. On top of all of that, this issue, this negative comes from, as is designated here, from 1909, so pre-World War I. Action photos in general were very scarce because the technology of the day made it really hard to have things focused, and then the equipment and the preparedness needed to capture an action shot made it extremely difficult, because you had to have the camera set up and everything ready to go and just hope that something would kind of occur in front of it, because you couldn't wield the camera around like today. The fact that this was shot and what it was and what we have is unbelievable detail, beautifully focused. Even Cobb's face, which you can just see the grimace on his face, you can feel the collision as he runs into the third baseman here, Jimmy Austin. The story behind this photo is this. So Conlon, who actually was a friend of the third baseman here, Jimmy Austin, who played for New York. Ty Cobb, of course, was with Detroit. In this game, which was played at the New York Stadium, which was called the Hilltop Park, I believe, for the New York team. So Cobb's on second. There's one out. The guy at the plate, they're trying to bunt him over. And for whatever reason, Conlon is set up on the third baseline, and he's talking with Jimmy Austin here. Now, Conlon had already set up his camera, everything was ready to go, and he was just preparing for what would be just a standard shot. Well, in the process of trying to bunt Cobb over, Austin takes a couple steps towards home plate to cut off the bunt. Cobb senses a moment, and he takes off to steal third. So what you're seeing here is the third base bag and the collision that ensued. And it was just the way Conlon describes it, because he was interviewed about this later, because he still remembers this photo as it became his most coveted. And he was telling the story about how when this whole collision occurred, all he could remember in his own eyes was this like just flurry of dust and uniforms and everyone kind of colliding. And he thought his good friend Jimmy Austin had been injured in it, because you can see the collision here that took place. And he said he doesn't even remember even taking the shot. He doesn't remember actually pulling the trigger to have the camera take the shot. And as it turned out later on, he pulled out the plate, kept it as a negative, went back and developed it, found out that it was just his own reflexes of being a photographer. At that time, it had taken the picture and he didn't even intend to do it. And so what you have is this just beautiful moment of history that depicts the attitude of Cobb in a way that maybe no other picture does better justice to it. Shot almost out of instinct by the game's most coveted photographer. This is really a piece of Americana and a piece of history, and this is the only known example from that Type 1 status to exist today. It's just, the superlatives are so many that you kind of just get chills, and this is definitely something that, in my opinion, belongs more in a museum than it does in a private collection, yet here it is. It's available, and prospective investors do have a chance of trying to acquire it. But short and skinny, this is really as good as it gets. I think for those who really love Cobb, love the brand, love baseball, love Conlon, this checks so many boxes. Yeah, this is really a special piece. We're absolutely delighted. I might love this as much as any Type 1 photo that I've ever seen. Really a special piece. So delighted to have it here in our vault. Any prospective investors, we wish them the best of luck in trying to acquire it. But for everyone else, certainly I hope they enjoyed the video. Do please take a look at the high-res images that exist on our webpage to enjoy this. This is definitely one that feeds the masses. Just unbelievably special throughout. So we'll do just a little bit of a zoom in here. The technical condition, the stock is missing in this one region. If you're going to have any of it missing, it's probably a very forgiving spot. We have a couple more chips here along the top edge. Overall, aesthetically though, the action pose is free of major creases and tears or blemishes of any kind. The back, very attractively, and see if I can get it in here, it says, see if I can get that to focus. You see it says Charles Conlon here with his standard stamp. It says Jimmy Austin in pencil across the top, and then Ty Cobb sliding, and then or stealing third, I should say, and it's missing the stock where it would finish that statement. But just an unbelievable piece of history. Yeah, couldn't be more delighted to have it. So again, encourage people to zoom in, look at the high-res images on the website. But other than that, picture says 1,000 words, and wish any prospective investors the best of luck in trying to acquire it.